My name is Lindsay Parker. I was 31 when my parents stood inside the mansion I had inherited and gave me 48 hours to disappear. My mother slapped an eviction notice onto the library desk. "You have 2 days," she said, smiling as though my life were a game she had already won. My father disabled my gate code, called security, and declared that I was no longer an authorized resident. My younger sister leaned against the doorway, filming me. "Start packing," she laughed. "Maybe your little repair job can afford a studio." They had already thrown my engineering tools into the rain, canceled the insurance on my truck, and told our relatives I had become unstable after losing my job. None of it was true. I was a preservation engineer who restored mechanical systems in historic buildings. And I had spent 6 years keeping Bellwether House standing while they treated it like a private bank. My father pointed toward the stairs. "This is the last time you sleep here." I looked at the eviction notice, then at the brass clock behind him. "No," I said. "It's yours." They thought I was surrendering. What they did not know was that my grandfather's safe held a recording, a key, and documents proving what they had done. They also did not know that a witness was already on his way to the porch. When that door opened, their 48-hour deadline would become a countdown against them. Before I tell you who was waiting outside and why my mother suddenly stopped smiling, tell me, what time is it where you are and where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels before my family's secret finally comes out. Bellwether House stood above Seneca Lake in upstate New York, but it was never the effortless palace my family displayed online. It had 42 rooms, a failing boiler, a leaking copper roof, and enough old plumbing to bankrupt anyone who confused history with luxury. My grandparents, Arthur and Eleanor Parker, had rescued the abandoned estate in the 1970s and restored it room by room. Grandpa rebuilt clocks, elevators, and heating systems. Grandma recorded every repair, contract, and payment in blue ledgers hidden behind the library wall. I spent my childhood beside them while my parents traveled, launched businesses, and returned whenever they needed money. At 16, Grandpa showed me a brass key built into the base of the library clock. Old houses survive because someone remembers what everyone else forgets. He told me, after my grandparents died 8 months apart, my parents claimed Bellwether had been left to the whole family. I was grieving, so I accepted their story. They moved into the main wing, gave my sister the lake suite, and assigned me 2 rooms beside the servants' staircase. Whenever I requested the estate documents, my mother said probate was still being handled. For 6 years, I paid for repairs because they insisted the estate had no cash. I replaced the boiler, stabilized the west balcony, and helped secure Bellwether's historic designation. Meanwhile, my father launched Parker Lake Experiences, a luxury retreat company. My mother hosted charity dinners under chandeliers I had rewired, and Chloe used the mansion as the backdrop for her lifestyle brand and wedding plans. 3 months before the eviction, I found contractors measuring the north lawn. My father called it a drainage survey, but one worker accidentally handed me a brochure for Parker Heritage Resort, a spa complex with 20 private villas built around Bellwether. When I confronted my family, they denied everything. Soon afterward, certified bank letters started arriving, but my mother intercepted them. My access to household accounts vanished, and Chloe began telling relatives I was obsessed with controlling the estate. On the night they gave me the notice, I carried my wet tools inside and went straight to the library. I wound the brass clock, waited for the 4th chime, and pressed the hidden key Grandpa had shown me 15 years earlier. A narrow panel opened behind the pendulum. Inside were 3 blue ledgers, a digital recorder, a sealed envelope, and a key marked B17. The envelope bore Grandpa's handwriting for Lindsay. Open only if someone tries to remove you from Bellwether. It contained instructions directing me to a private bank vault and warning me not to confront anyone until I contacted Noah Mercer. Noah had grown up in the gatehouse. His father managed Bellwether, and Noah later became the ground supervisor. 14 years earlier, my parents accused him of stealing antique silver and forced his family away. I believed them until I discovered the missing pieces in my mother's dressing room cabinet. I called the number written in Grandpa's note. Noah answered immediately. "Did they finally try to throw you out?" he asked. The question chilled me. He had been waiting for this moment. "Check the safe. Take nothing else and don't let them know I'm coming," he said. Then he told me to contact Ethan Caldwell, my grandparents' former estate attorney, that night. While my family celebrated downstairs, I replaced the recorder's battery. Grandpa's voice emerged through the static. "If you are hearing this, Lindsay, then Michael and Rachel have chosen the house over their daughter." He paused before adding, "What they call an inheritance is actually evidence." Ethan Caldwell refused to meet in a cafe or office. He told me to drive to an abandoned railway depot 20 miles from Bell, where no one connected to my family would see us. He was 63 and had served as my grandparents' attorney before suddenly retiring after their deaths. My parents said he mishandled probate. Ethan told me they had removed him because he refused to certify a suspicious transfer. I placed the ledgers and recorder on a workbench. He opened the first ledger, checked several entries, and finally looked at me. "Your grandparents did not leave Bellwether to the family," he said. "They left it to you." He explained that they had created a preservation trust, naming me sole residential beneficiary and future trustee. My parents received conditional occupancy rights, but they were forbidden from mortgaging the estate, selling protected land, or using it for commercial development. The original deed was stored in Vault B17. A certified copy had been filed through a private preservation agreement, which was why an ordinary county search would not reveal everything. I asked how my parents could legally evict me. "They can't," Ethan answered. But the notice is not the dangerous part. He showed me a financing statement from North Star Capital. 16 months earlier, Parker Lake Experiences had borrowed $8 million for the resort project, listing Bellwether and 60 acres of protected shoreline as collateral. My father represented himself as controlling owner, and my mother signed as trustee, even though neither had authority. When North Star questioned the title, someone submitted an amendment supposedly signed by my grandmother 3 weeks after her death. The document removed me as beneficiary and transferred control to my parents. Ethan believed the signature was forged, but handwriting alone would not prove who created it. That was why Grandpa preserved the ledgers. One documented trust instructions and maintenance costs. Another listed unauthorized loans taken by my parents. The third recorded threats, missing documents, and the disappearance of Grandpa's notary seal. A final entry named Noah as the witness who saw my father removing papers from the estate office. My parents accused Noah of theft before he could testify, threatened his family with prosecution, and drove them out of New York. Ethan asked whether they knew I had the recorder. I said they believed I was packing. He warned me to keep it that way. We needed the original deed, vault access records, and Noah's testimony before confronting anyone. Then he showed me why they had chosen a 48-hour deadline. A private appraisal was scheduled for Friday morning, exactly when my eviction expired. The report was the last requirement before North Star released another $2 million. My family needed me gone so they could present Bellwether as an uncontested commercial asset. Ethan planned to request emergency protection for the trust while I acted as though I intended to leave. Before I drove away, he revealed that my mother had contacted him 2 days earlier and offered $75,000 for a statement saying Grandpa revoked the trust. The betrayal was no longer just personal. Throwing me out was cruel. Bribing the attorney who protected my grandparents' wishes was deliberate corruption. Ethan added that Chloe's wedding venue, sponsorship contracts, and new home were all financed through my father's company. If the Bellwether loan collapsed, everything attached to it would collapse. 2. For years, Chloe mocked me for repairing boilers while she built a glamorous life online. Now, I knew her success had not been funded by talent. It had been funded by my stolen inheritance. I returned to Bellwether at 2 in the morning and began packing empty boxes. By breakfast, I had stacked them along the upstairs hall where my family could see them. My mother entered my room without knocking, looked at the boxes, and smiled. "I'm glad you're finally being reasonable," she said. Her name was Rachel Whitmore Parker, and reason had always meant obedience when she used the word. She had built her reputation as a charity event consultant, presenting herself as a woman who preserved history and supported local families. In reality, she considered every relationship a transaction. My father, Michael Parker, was more direct. He believed authority belonged to whoever spoke with the greatest certainty. My sister, Chloe Parker Bennett, had inherited both qualities and refined them for social media. Rachel placed a rental listing on my desk. "This is within your budget. Your father has even offered to cover the deposit, provided you sign a release confirming that you have no claim against Bell." There it was, not an act of kindness, a waiver. I pretended to read it. "I'll think about it. You have until tomorrow afternoon." After she left, I photographed every page and sent it to Ethan. The release stated that I had occupied Bellwether only as a guest and acknowledged my parents as exclusive owners. Had I signed it, they would have used it to strengthen the forged amendment. For the rest of the day, I played the daughter they expected. I carried boxes toward my truck. I apologized for making things difficult. I even told Chloe she could have the brass mirror in the East Hall. Her suspicion disappeared immediately. She followed me into the ballroom and explained her plans for the mansion. The north garden would become a heated glass pavilion. The library would be transformed into a cocktail lounge. The original carriage house would be demolished for guest parking. "You never understood what this place could be." She said, "You're emotionally attached to broken pipes and old furniture. Dad sees potential." What happens if the Historic Commission objects? Chloe gave me a smug look. "Mom knows people." I asked about her wedding. She admitted that several vendors had not been paid because the company was waiting for one final funding release. The wedding was scheduled at Bell in 6 weeks and was being promoted through a luxury bridal partnership. Nearly 200 guests, local donors, and lifestyle journalists had been invited. That explained why my family needed control of the property immediately. If Northstar froze the loan, Chloe's public image would collapse before her wedding. While she spoke, my phone recorded every word from inside my jacket. That afternoon, a truck arrived to remove furniture from the West Wing. My father claimed the pieces were going into storage. I recognized 2 18th-century cabinets protected under the preservation agreement. The driver's paperwork listed a private auction house in Boston. My parents were selling trust property before the loan even closed. I stood in front of the truck. Michael stormed outside. "Move. Those cabinets belong to the house. They belong to me. Show me the bill of sale." His expression sharpened. For 1 second, I thought he might strike me. Instead, he grabbed my arm and pulled me aside while the movers loaded the cabinets. "You have confused our patience with weakness," he said. "You lived here because we allowed it. Do not make us involve the police." The security camera above the carriage house captured everything. What Michael did not know was that I had personally installed that system during the restoration. The video was backed up to an account he could not access. I let the truck leave. Ethan had advised me not to stop the sale. The auction paperwork would provide evidence that my father was liquidating protected trust assets. That evening, Noah called. He was an hour away. He finally told me why my grandparents had trusted him. On the night my father stole the notary seal, Noah saw him enter the estate office with Rachel. He later found discarded test pages containing imitations of my grandmother's signature. Noah saved one page and gave it to his father. When my parents learned about it, they planted silverware inside the Mercer family's car and threatened to have Noah's father arrested unless they left town. "Why didn't you tell me you were 17?" he replied. "Your grandfather thought protecting you meant keeping you outside the fight." Noah had carried the test page for 14 years. More importantly, his father had recorded Michael's threat during their final meeting. Noah still possessed the cassette. He planned to arrive at the mansion at noon the next day, exactly when my eviction deadline expired, at 10 that night. I found Chloe in the library trying to open the brass clock. She had seen me standing near it after the eviction notice and realized something might be hidden inside. "What are you looking for?" I asked. She spun around. Nothing. The clock panel was scratched, but the compartment was empty. I had already moved the evidence. Chloe stepped closer. "You always thought Grandpa loved you more. He trusted me more." "There's a difference." Her face hardened. "Tomorrow, nobody will care what Grandpa wanted. You'll be gone. The appraiser will sign off, and this place will finally become useful." That was the first time she admitted knowing about the appraisal. I asked whether she understood that the loan was built on a property our parents might not own. She laughed. "Dad has documents. Documents can lie. So can bitter daughters." She walked away without realizing she had confirmed the conspiracy while my phone was recording. At midnight, Ethan messaged me that the bank had located Vault B17. Access would require my identification and the brass key. We scheduled the opening for 7 the next morning. I looked at the suitcases by my bedroom door. They were filled with blankets, old magazines, and pieces of scrap metal to make them feel heavy. My real belongings remained exactly where they were. My family believed they were watching me surrender. They were actually watching a performance designed to keep them confident until every door closed behind them. Bellwether Community Bank opened at 7, but its president, Marjorie Sloan, was already waiting when Ethan and I arrived. She had reviewed the access history for Vault B17 and discovered that Rachel had attempted to enter it 4 times after Grandma died, each time claiming to be the successor trustee. Employees refused because she lacked the key. 6 months earlier, someone submitted an order to drill the vault open because the key was supposedly lost. The order carried Ethan's forged signature. Marjorie led us underground and watched as I inserted the brass key. Inside the vault were 5 items: the original preservation deed, a notarized beneficiary declaration, 2 audio tapes, Grandma's accounting book, and a letter addressed to the district attorney. The deed named me as Bellwether's sole beneficiary. My parents could occupy the East Wing only until I turned 31, after which they needed my written permission to remain. I had turned 31 3 weeks earlier. Their right to live at Bellwether had already expired. The eviction notice was not merely invalid. They were attempting to remove the legal owner from a house they no longer had permission to occupy. The beneficiary declaration included photographs, fingerprints, and a coded notary stamp. Ethan compared it with the forged amendment and immediately spotted the difference. The amendment used Grandpa's stolen seal, but he had canceled that seal and registered a replacement before his death. Whoever forged the document never knew. Grandma's accounting book was even more damaging. It recorded 7 unauthorized withdrawals totaling $640,000. The money flowed into companies controlled by my father. One transfer funded the down payment on Chloe's house. Another financed the launch of Parker Lake Experiences. A third paid legal fees related to the false accusation against Noah's family. Several checks were signed after Grandma's stroke when she could no longer hold a pen. Marjorie contacted the bank's fraud department while Ethan opened Grandpa's letter to the district attorney. Grandpa, Snorts, had documented his suspicions but delayed filing the complaint because he hoped his son would confess and repay the estate. If that never happened, He instructed the future trustee to protect Belle without fear of preserving appearances. For years. I had stayed quiet because I feared becoming the daughter who destroyed the family. His words made the truth clear. Exposing wrongdoing did not destroy a family. The wrongdoing did. The first tape contained Grandpa and Grandma confirming that Bellwether belonged to me and that no amendment had been authorized. The second recorded an argument with my parents. Michael demanded control of the estate for a business loan. Rachel said I was too independent to be trusted. Grandpa refused. My father then said, "When you're gone, paper will say whatever we need it to say." Grandpa answered, "That sentence may be the most expensive thing you ever say." 14 years later, it was about to become exactly that. By 9:30, Northstar froze every pending payment connected to Parker Lake experiences and referred the forged amendment to investigators. The district attorney's financial crimes unit requested the bank records and scheduled an immediate interview with Noah. Ethan filed for emergency protection of the trust, and because protected antiques had already been sent to auction. The judge froze several company assets. At 11, Chloe called repeatedly. When I finally answered, she said the florist had frozen the wedding account. The company could not make payroll and her planner had lost the venue deposit. "What did you do, say?" she demanded. I looked at the deed. I found out who owns the house. By 11:50, Ethan and I drove through Bellwether's gates. A sheriff's vehicle waited near the fountain. Not for me, but for my parents. Noah stood on the porch holding a weathered document case. Through the library windows, I saw my family gathered around the eviction notice. Chloe was crying. My father was pacing, and my mother still pretended she controlled the room. The clock reached noon. My 48 hours were over. Theirs had just begun. My father opened the door before I reached it. "You're late!" Behind him. Rachel held the release agreement while Chloe filmed with her phone. Michael pointed toward the suitcases beside the stairs. "Load your things and hand over your keys." Then Noah stepped into view and my father's face changed. For 14 years, he had called Noah a thief. Now the man he had driven away stood on the porch carrying evidence my parents believed had vanished with him. Rachel told him he was not welcome. "I invited him," I said. "You don't have the authority," she answered. Ethan entered behind us. "Actually, she does. In the library." He placed the original deed beside the eviction notice. Chloe read the beneficiary section and asked what it meant. Bellwether was left to Lindsay. Ethan explained. "Your parents' occupancy rights expired 3 weeks ago. Michael insisted the deed had been replaced." Ethan laid the forged amendment beside it and identified the canceled seal and impossible signature date. Northstar had already referred the document for investigation. Rachel grabbed the amendment and declared that it proved nothing. "It proves enough for an asset freeze," Ethan said. Her composure broke. I told her I had also contacted the Preservation Commission, the bank, and the auction house holding the furniture. Michael slammed his hand on the desk and shouted that I had no right. I opened my laptop and displayed 6 years of repair invoices in my name, including expenses his company had falsely claimed as business deductions. When he stepped toward me, Noah moved between us. Rachel called Noah, a disgruntled employee whom no one would believe. He removed the signature practice page and placed a cassette recorder on the desk. "They don't have to believe my memory," he said. "They can hear your husband threatening my father." The recording played Michael's younger voice, ordering the Mercers to leave and warning that the planted silver would become a felony case if they spoke. Then Rachel's voice said, "Belle will belong to us soon, and we are done letting servants interfere." Chloe stared at our mother. "You said Noah stole from Grandma." Rachel reached for the cassette, but Noah pulled it away and said the original was already with investigators. Michael accused me of bringing criminals into our home. I asked how he could call Bellwether his after-mortgaging property he did not own, forging Grandma's signature, stealing trust money, and framing an innocent family. He said I did not understand what was at stake. I understand perfectly, I replied. Chloe's house, her wedding, your company, and Mom's reputation. Everything except the people you sacrificed. Ethan showed Chloe the transfers, proving that trust money funded her home and wedding. She turned on our parents, demanding to know why they had claimed the money came from investors. Michael said it would have been repaid, with the loan secured by my house. I asked. Rachel tore the eviction notice in half, then lunged for the original deed. I lifted it before she could reach it. She began to insult me, but stopped when 2 financial crimes investigators and the sheriff's deputies entered the library. They served my parents with preservation orders covering their phones, computers, accounts, and business records. The deputies confirmed that no trust property could leave Bell and that I controlled access to the estate. Michael accused me of manipulating Grandpa. I played my grandparents' tape. Grandma's voice filled the room. Lindsay never asked us for Bellwether. That is why she deserves to protect it. Inheritance is not a reward. It is a responsibility. Grandpa added that if their son tried to claim the house through pressure, fraud, or forged documents, his right to live there must end immediately. My father went pale. Rachel asked for time. Ethan answered, "You gave Lindsay 48 hours. The court has given you 24. Chloe cried that her wedding was supposed to happen there. I remembered her laughter as my tools lay in the rain. Start packing, I told her. Michael stepped close and hissed, "This is the last time you sleep here." I smiled. "No, it's yours." Only then did he understand. That night would be his last in Bellwether House. My parents did not leave quietly for the next 24 hours. Rachel called relatives, board members, and local reporters. She claimed I had exploited my grandparents, conspired with a disgraced former employee, and forced an elderly couple from their home. Michael instructed workers to remove computers from the estate office, violating the preservation order. One employee recorded him offering cash to destroy old accounting files. By sunset, the investigators had seized the computers and added attempted evidence destruction to the case referral. The following morning, my parents carried their suitcases through Bellwether's front doors, while the same relatives they had invited to witness my eviction stood near the driveway. Rachel had summoned them, expecting public pressure to make me retreat. Instead, they watched deputies supervise her departure. The humiliation was not something I planned, but it was the consequence of her own strategy. She wanted an audience when I lost my home. She received one when she lost access to it. Michael's business collapsed within a week. Northstar canceled the financing and sued Parker Lake Experiences for fraudulent representations. Without the next loan payment, the company missed payroll, vendor bills, and lease obligations. Its remaining assets were placed into receivership. The proposed resort disappeared from its investors' website. The auction house returned Bellwether's cabinets. The Historic Commission opened a separate investigation into the unauthorized development permits my mother claimed she could arrange through her connections. Rachel resigned from 2 charity boards after reporters obtained records showing that she used donor events to promote a company financed through disputed trust assets. The organizations were not responsible for her actions, but they could no longer allow her to represent them. Chloe's losses were the most public. Her bridal sponsors withdrew when they learned that Bellwether was not available as a commercial venue. The wedding planner canceled after the financing account was frozen. Chloe's fiancé, Grant Bennett, discovered that my father had persuaded him to guarantee part of the resort debt without disclosing the title dispute. Grant postponed the wedding and moved out of the house purchased with my grandmother's money. For several days, Chloe blamed me. She posted vague messages about jealous relatives and family betrayal. Then Ethan sent her the recording of our parents discussing the resort. On it, Rachel called Chloe's wedding useful publicity, and Michael said Grant's family would absorb the losses if financing failed. Chloe deleted every post. She came to Bellwether 2 weeks later without cameras, makeup, or the confidence she had worn like armor. She stood outside the gate because I had removed her access code. "Did you know Grant might lose his savings?" she asked. "No." "Did Mom and Dad?" "Yes." She looked toward the mansion. "They used me, too." "They did." She waited for me to comfort her. I couldn't. Understanding that she had also been manipulated did not erase the years she spent helping them manipulate me. "I didn't forge anything," she said. "But you knew they were forcing me out for the appraisal." She looked down. "You recorded me." I continued. "You laughed while my tools were thrown into the rain. You repeated lies about my mental health so relatives wouldn't believe me. You may not have created the fraud, Chloe, but you benefited from it and protected the people committing it. What do you want me to do? Tell the truth without asking what you'll receive in return." 3 days later, Chloe gave investigators her messages, planning documents and recordings of conversations with our parents. Her cooperation did not save the wedding or restore her sponsorships, but it prevented her from becoming part of the financial conspiracy case. My parents faced civil claims from North Star, Bellwether's trust, and Noah's family. The district attorney later charged them with multiple counts connected to forged documents, fraudulent lending, and attempted evidence destruction. I did not celebrate when I learned about the charges. Justice is not always joyful. Sometimes it is simply the moment when lies stop controlling the lives around them. Noah's family received a formal statement clearing them of the theft accusation. The local newspaper corrected the old report that had followed his father for years. Noah chose not to return as an employee. Instead, the trust hired his landscape restoration company to repair the north lawn my parents had damaged while preparing for the resort. Ethan helped me restructure Bellwether as a nonprofit preservation residence. The East Wing became temporary housing for apprentices studying historic trades. The carriage house became a workshop for young people learning masonry, carpentry, clock repair, and mechanical conservation. I kept my engineering career, but Bellwether became part of the work rather than a monument to family status. One evening, months after the eviction, I sat in the library and listened to the final section of my grandfather's recording. I had stopped the tape too early the first time. His voice was weaker in the last minute. "Lindsay, protecting this house may require you to stand against people you love. Do not confuse loyalty with surrender. Loyalty protects what is right. Surrender protects whoever is strongest." My grandmother spoke after him. "And remember that a house is not sacred because a family owns it." Snorts. "It becomes sacred when the people inside refuse to build comfort from someone else's suffering." I finally understood why they chose me. It was not because I loved Bellwether more than my parents did. My parents loved its value, its influence, and the image it gave them. I loved the responsibility. I knew which walls needed reinforcement, which pipes froze in February, and which windows had to be opened carefully to protect the original glass. I understood that inheritance was not permission to consume what previous generations created. It was an obligation to leave something honest behind. My relationship with Chloe remained complicated. She apologized without demanding forgiveness, and over time I allowed her limited visits. She never regained a financial interest in Bellwether. Some boundaries should remain permanent even after anger fades. My parents sent letters through their attorneys. My father called me vindictive. My mother wrote that family problems should never have been made public. Neither letter contained an apology to Noah, my grandparents, or me. I did not respond. They believed silence meant I had nothing left to say. In reality, silence was the first thing they could no longer control. The day they gave me 48 hours to leave, They believed blood made them entitled to my obedience. They believed confidence could replace ownership and that forged paper could erase a dead woman's wishes. Most of all, they believed I would protect the family's reputation even while they destroyed my future. They were wrong. Family is not defined by the people who demand your sacrifice while calling it loyalty. Family is found in those who respect your dignity, protect the truth, and remain beside you when doing the right thing becomes difficult. Persistence did not make me cruel. Evidence did not make me disloyal. Defending my grandparents' wishes did not destroy my family. Greed had already done that. I simply refused to let greed inherit the house. So here is the question I still ask myself. If the people closest to you demanded that you surrender your home, your reputation, and the truth just to preserve their comfort, would you walk away quietly, or would you finally make them answer for what they had done? Thank you for joining us through every part of this fictional story. This video was made only for entertainment, education, and dramatic reflection. We hope it reminds you that the peace you built after chaos can become more valuable than anything you thought you lost. Once your life becomes calm again, you may realize that letting go was not a punishment, but a form of freedom.